the name of the values that keep you alive, do not let your vision of man be distorted by the ugly, the cowardly, the mindless, and those who have never achieved his title. Do not lose your knowledge that man's proper estate is an upright posture, an intransigent mind, and a step that travels on limited roads. Do not let your fire go out. Spark might replace the spark, and the hopeless swamps of the approximate, the not quite, the not yet, the not at all. The world you desired can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It's yours.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Crypto Economy Podcast. Today I'm here with Larry Sanger. He was a co-founder of Wikipedia and he is currently the CIO of Everipedia. So thanks so much for being here, Larry.
Sure, glad to join you.
So to get started, I think it'd be really interesting to hear a little bit about your experience with Wikipedia and maybe how that might compare to what Everipedia is trying to do right now.
How it might compare. Okay, well, I got Wikipedia started back in 2001. It was at first just a sort of fun side project, a way to get more content into the content development stream of Newpedia, which is the parent project of Wikipedia. And it just wasn't going very well. And Wikipedia basically engaged over the first few months, a few hundred people off and on. And basically, there are all these people who are really excited about getting started on an open content encyclopedia, a free volunteer written encyclopedia, but they just didn't like the way that Newpedia was going. And so there are some interesting comparisons between that time and Everipedia right now, because right now, there is a parent project of Everipedia. It is, Everipedia Mark 1, version 1, basically as it was developed from 2015 until last year. And then last July, we went live with the Everipedia network, and we actually started serving our articles from IPFS, and which interacts with our EOS-based blockchain. And yeah, for the first time, we have been building a technology that a lot of people are really excited to try out. But if you want to participate, you actually have to own EOS in advance, and you have to use scatter. And so there's a bit of a learning curve, and that's going to be off-putting for most people, I think. But I do also think there are going to be a lot of people who are waiting in the wings, essentially, ready to try it out when we have built a slick new front end and account registration process that we're developing now. So I actually think when we launch the new platform this spring, it's going to be like the launch of Wikipedia. It's because, again, there's a whole bunch of people who already have EOS and who are pretty excited about getting involved. And there's a lot of people who think that there needs to be a viable alternative to Wikipedia as well. And you put all that together, and I really think that we're going to start with a bang when we're really ready.
So for the people who are looking for an alternative to Wikipedia, what do you think they're looking for? Do you think they're attracted by the fact that edits are saved in a sort of blockchain format, so everything is more public, you can see what's happening? What are the major grievances with Wikipedia? And then maybe you could touch upon, I know they recently enacted something called the nuclear option for Wikipedia within that community. So maybe your thoughts on that as well.
Right. Well, there's all of my grievances, but I guess what I was talking about is the difficulties that most potential encyclopedia contributors would have with Wikipedia when they go to the site and they start trying it out. One of the problems is that there's again kind of a learning curve required to get involved. You have to not only get acquainted with this markup language, which is no problem for technical people, but well, most people who want to write encyclopedia articles aren't that technical. And then there's the problem that there's so many rules to learn, and you can't just get to work the way I wanted people to do when I first wrote the ignore all rules rule on Wikipedia. So yeah, there's all of that, and then my problem with it in general is broader. It's that Wikipedia appeals to the current Wikipedians. It is any self-selecting volunteer community quickly becomes conservative. The people who like the system as it is stick around. The people who don't like it will leave. This is what has happened with Wikipedia. As a result, it's really difficult to change anything on Wikipedia because the Wikipedians like it the way it is. And so this is why by the way, I don't expect Wikipedia itself to start a blockchain encyclopedia. I mean, I wouldn't completely rule it out, but I don't think they will for that reason. I think that there are millions of people potentially interested in writing about the things that they know about for a free encyclopedia. But Wikipedia has only 10, 12,000 regular contributors, people who contribute enough to have the right to vote on administrator accounts, and that's not very much contribution. You really don't have to actually contribute much to be at that level. So yeah, there needs to be a more decentralized way of contributing so that you're not forced to interact with the Wikipedia community or directly even with the Everipedia community. There needs to be more of an open protocol that we can use to publish encyclopedia articles and then let various front ends select the articles.
And
So,
I guess that's an interesting point because one of the reasons I assume Wikipedia has tried to do this really is just control of the content to make sure that things are as accurate as they can be. But, when we're going through school, Wikipedia is always the first search result, but we can never cite it for anything. So,
right?
how do we get to the point where we can crowdsource knowledge that's actually, that we can be sure enough about that we can use it in, the ways people, at least until they're, through school, are typically using these sources?
I don't think it'll ever be the case that anyone above the age of 12 or so should cite an encyclopedia for anything other than a claim about what encyclopedias contain, which is very rare when you need to actually say that. Um, Encyclopedias are reference works, and one just doesn't cite reference works. So that's my view on that. Um, but I do think that a lot of teachers will be a lot more, at every level, will be a lot more comfortable um, directing their students to the top-rated articles on the Everipedia network than they were directing their students to Wikipedia. Um, so basically, to answer the question, Everipedia is developing in a couple of different stages. So in the first phase of development, which has been ongoing for the last year or so, almost a year anyway, um, we have put Everipedia.org, our contents on the blockchain, and made the back end solid, and worked out the white paper for the basic functionality. But that's just supporting our own stuff. Going forward in the next phase, we're going to enable articles from lots of different encyclopedias to have articles on the same topics even. So there could be hosted on the Everipedia network, or at least hosted actually on IPFS, but linked to from the network, um, articles, multiple articles about, say, like God, for example. And that's my favorite example, because there's such completely different views on that, and well, the what we want to do is create a rating system that is not actually doesn't determine what gets into the blockchain. So we want to make it really easy for stuff to get on the blockchain. Um, but we want to make it easy also for people to rate the articles. And then exactly what we do with the ratings is sort of up to the app. One thing I want to do is have uh, metadata about the raters. So I can say I've got a PhD in philosophy, I have, my sex is this, is my nationality is that, my politics are this, my philosophy is that, I have a bachelor's degree in this, I have, extra certification in that, and so forth. And then the idea is that people can slice and dice the rating data based on the qualifications or qualities of the people who've done the rating. And then imagine looking at that page of articles about God, and instead of just having one ranking based on the average of everyone, or maybe a weighted average based on number of IQ tokens, which doesn't sound very fair or necessarily likely to result in truth to me. Instead, you can weight ratings based on things like, well, how expert is the person at this particular topic. Or in the case of God, for example, maybe you're a Christian and you really don't care what other people from other religions think about it. Or maybe you're an atheist and you want to know the top rated article according to your fellow atheists. Or maybe you're just a comparative religionist and you actually would like to compare the top rated articles on God according to all kinds of different religions, which I think would be absolutely fascinating. But in the end, if there is enough competition, if there is enough rating rather, then there's going to be a lot of competition to have the top rated article according to different viewpoints. And that is finally the answer to the question. In the second phase of the development of the Everipedia network, we're going to have such interest that there's going to be a lot of ratings, and we will be able to say with a fairly high degree of confidence that the top rated article for Christians is this, and that really is a great article, and there's going to be the competition, and that's going to motivate people to do the very best they can. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, no, and that's interesting because we have so many problems with just coming to consensus about different opinions, different ideas. So, could you imagine this working in such a way where you could have people essentially creating consensus around certain themes? So, my consensus is
Hmm.
that this line of the Bible means X, Y, Z, and then you could see, I guess, how many other people, agree with that. So creating, I guess, almost decision trees where you can see where the cards really fall as far as how people really feel about, the nuances of different ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah, some people have suggested that what we ought to do, what we will inevitably do, maybe, is to uh, get very granular and basically allow people to vote on facts, as it were, which sounds kind of horrifying in some ways.
Yeah.
but um, but you know what I'm saying, and the idea is that maybe based on whether the claims made in an article are consistent with the voting on individual facts, that you could actually come up with uh, a tool to evaluate the accuracy of an article. But of course, even that would have to be uh, subject to filters,
Yeah.
right? At least it should be subject to filters. And I I think this is the only way that you can really motivate a wide enough variety of people to participate in a project like this. If you try to say we're going to try to organize all the encyclopedia articles in the world, but there's going to be one editorial board, or there's going to be one privileged group of people, or just one point of view that results in a single set of articles, or a single top-rated set of articles. Um, Basically, it kind of excludes everyone who disagrees with the outcome, whatever they are, and um, that means that ultimately it's not going to be as big and important as it could be.
Yeah, and I mean that's already what seems to be happening. We have, very few people in charge of what actually gets broadcasted, what gets disseminated. So it's interesting to give the tools to everybody and see what everybody comes up with when you actually crowdsource, the collective intellect of, a million people instead of the 100 people that work at Fox News or CNN or something like that. They're trying to put these pieces together on their own that other people might be able to put together with each other, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And I actually think that the model that I've been describing, it can be used for lots of different things, and I commend it to other people. We probably can't do everything along those lines, and it seems to, in my opinion, I've been thinking about this for a year, actually more than a year. Um, the conclusion that I've come to is that it's a perfect match for blockchain projects in general. And again, what I mean is um, to allow people to rate the items in your system, and then allow to have metadata about the raters, so that there isn't any privileged set of ratings. And I think that's the real key.
And I guess we're at a point now where a lot of the biggest platforms are sort of having trouble. So you look at Facebook, their idea was we were going to crowdsource all of this information, all this data that people are going to see. So we
Hmm.
don't really need to be there all the time curating these feeds for people. People will do it for them. But the issue is, where do you draw the line as far as censorship? What do we allow on the platform? What are we liable for if it is? Tumblr just had to be taken down because they had child porn being posted on there. So what's the
That's
balance
not just,
between?
it's all porn, is what I
Yeah,
thought. Yeah, I mean, I'm all in favor of getting rid of child porn, but not just all porn. That's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. But I guess that's the question. How do you regulate a platform without censoring, the people who should be there? What is that balance? Uh, how do you do it? And also from a legal perspective, how might blockchain help with some of those things? Because I know it can be harder to say that a company has, this information on their servers if it's stored in a blockchain that's decentralized, for example?
I'm sorry. So what's the question?
Yeah, sorry. Is that something Everipedia, I guess more specifically, has to think about, or is that not something you guys are worried about or putting controls in place for?
Putting controls in place for figuring out what should be censored.
Yeah.
Well, I that's a good question, and I don't get the sense from anybody in our organization that we are hot to censor anything at all, apart from whatever is actually illegal, at least in the United States.
Yeah.
And uh, obviously, there are certain things that are going to be, um, you know, excluded, already have been excluded, such as copyright infringement, um, and any number of other uh, traditional exceptions, so to speak, to free speech rules. You know, the traditional. There's a long list. I don't know if I can give it off the top of my head,
Sure.
but it includes things like libel and copyright infringement, child pornography, incitement to violence, and various other things like that. And no doubt we will do our best to exclude things like that. But beyond that, I don't think, for example, that we are going to be on board with Tim Cook's idea that it's a sin not to censor
Yeah.
hate speech, for example, because the notion of hate speech is so amorphous.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, I won't get into the details because it's perhaps needlessly um, controversial, but the point is that um, our view is that the traditional American standards of free speech are what are needed for a truly open global uh, encyclopedia, especially one that is already publicly committed to combating censorship. I mean, we one of the great advantages of having an encyclopedia on the blockchain and IPFS is that the multiple nodes and the multiple um, uh, nodes in the file sharing system of IPFS mean that it can't be shut down, and so yeah, and that's how it should be. I mean, the tyrants of the world, the people who would control our thoughts, should be scared. Um, and I remember saying that about Wikipedia as well in the early days. And it was true to a certain extent, wasn't it? Because in fact Wikipedia is censored
Yeah.
by various totalitarian regimes, and from their point of view, I suppose it makes sense. Um, but I think we can do even better, and I think we already have. And I'm not going to let any cats out of the bag, but we will have other things to say along those lines in the coming months.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And that's, something as far as censorship. We have Google sort of censoring some search results and things like that. So I think people are worried a lot about censorship, and I think taking a strong stance on that is a great way to differentiate yourself at this point.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people are looking for that. They want truth. They don't want the truth that's been siphoned for them to digest more easily. Um,
It's interesting that you put it like that. They want the truth. Well, of course they want the truth. Everybody wants the truth, but even that simple phrase actually can be used to imply diametrically opposed things. Like if you're the sort of person who, like some of my friends are, um, and I don't hold it against them, but they're rather conventional in how they think about what the media tells them, what mainstream science tells them, or whatever. They don't like to think very hard about the whys and wherefores of anything that's particularly controversial, or that goes against whatever the establishment wants them to believe.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
and
uncomfortable.
yeah, and my view is I'm a skeptic. I actually want the truth. Um, but when I say I want the truth, what I mean is, well, what you were saying before. I want to be presented with all different sides, and I want to be able to make up my own mind, and I want to sift through the different possibilities that the truth could be. And if there isn't a full airing of all different points of view, then it's going to be really hard for me to be sure that I have the truth. Whereas, again, other people like those more conventional friends of mine, they say, when they say they want the truth, what they really mean is, I want the approved, truth according to, the scientific establishment, the medical establishment, the media establishment, or whatever.
Yeah, and for the people on the other side of it, the more you censor certain ideas, the more they're gonna believe those might be the ones with
Yeah.
something behind them, which is the other side of the coin where they're creating a lot of the problems they think that they're squashing. And to take this a step farther, I guess, and this leads in nicely, what would you think about what did you think about a project like WikiLeaks, and could you ever imagine Everipedia being used for something similar? Because, like you said, storing it on the blockchain would be a pretty effective means of releasing documents that you don't want a government to take down.
Well, a lot of what WikiLeaks does, as I understand it, or has done, I really don't know if they've done anything recently. I haven't been tracking them closely lately. Um, but a lot of what they do is actually difficult behind the scenes stuff about enabling people to safely blow the whistle without outing themselves. And that's I'm not sure that simply having the information on the blockchain is going to make that aspect of it any easier. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I do think that I can easily imagine WikiLeaks itself moving to the blockchain if they haven't already. I'd be actually kind of surprised if they weren't already in the process of doing that. Um, I don't know that we necessarily want to go in that direction because most of the stuff that is in WikiLeaks, it does not take the form of an encyclopedia article.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't mean that we're not interested in ultimately um, basically collecting ratings, showcasing um, content of other kinds as well, but we're starting with encyclopedias, and we're going to try to make sure we get that part right to begin with.
Yeah, that's the base you have to start from.
Yep.
So could you talk a little bit about how the token comes into play, what the IQ token is, and maybe
hmm
how that might solve some of the problems that maybe Wikipedia had had? I know Wikipedia really worked off of a donation model, so I was
hmm
curious, how effective that actually was, or if, Everpedia was reinventing the wheel there because it was more of a necessity.
Well, Wikipedia, at the end of the year tries to act as if they're in desperate need of your cash, and they're not. They get many, many millions of dollars more than they actually need to
Host a
competently,
website.
yeah, to competently keep it going.
Yeah.
They, from my point of view, they waste enormous amounts of money. Of course, I'm gonna offend people when I say that,
Yeah.
but that's my view. Um, So it's not like Wikipedia doesn't have enough money, but um, Wikipedia has had trouble motivating um, a lot of great experts at participating, not just because they are so off-putting, but because basically people don't get paid to contribute to Wikipedia. And in my experience, a few different times, trying to persuade professionals to get involved with my encyclopedia projects, um, I've discovered again and again that serious experts, including college professors, they don't like being asked to contribute for free, and so
Yeah.
that's like a um, pretty cool that you have a new argument and you can give to those people and say, look, um, not only do you have the opportunity to get paid, you actually are um, unlocking for yourself, mining for yourself, um, a measure of the value of your contribution the to the blockchain, which is pretty cool. You become a co-owner of the thing as much as anybody else simply by contributing. And I think that's going to be persuasive to some people that the open source wiki collaborative model, for people that wasn't so persuasive for. So there's that. And then another thing is simply that enabling, uh, requiring that people um, uh, put up a small number of IQ in order to contribute to the network. That means that essentially, um, uh, if they do a really bad job, they upload something that they've cribbed from some other copyrighted
Yeah.
source, then they lose their tokens. So
Skin in the game.
yeah, the skin in the game thing provides a sort of a minimal benchmark of quality. Exactly um, how important that is going to be is going we're really not going to know for sure until after we launch the new front end. Um, but I think that's going to make a difference. That's definitely going to make a difference. The very fact that people are co-owners of the whole is going to give them not just a sense of group identity, which they've already got on Wikipedia, um, but a sense of ownership, which is even stronger, I think. Um, and so yeah, and then of course there's the whole phase two aspect of the thing where again I won't repeat it, but just to remind people what I'm talking about. Um, yeah, if we are rating all of the articles and storing the rating data as metadata on the blockchain, people can use the data to uh, create rankings of articles and competitions, essentially. That's going to create all kinds of uh, new kinds of motivation that don't exist on Wikipedia to get involved. I mean, there is one article that you have to work on with other people, with Wikipedians, if you want to participate in the world's biggest encyclopedia. That will no longer be the case when Everipedia overtakes Wikipedia.
Yeah. And so you talked a little bit about, I guess, the data. So how how can you take the data? I know you worked on a news platform before this,
Uh-huh.
where you're trying to, I guess, maybe you were trying to gauge. What was the premise of that? Sorry.
Well, so it's called Infobit, and the the idea behind Infobit, very briefly, was that the news is spread out among lots of different articles, and the only way that you could sort of bring it all together and create a real-time representation of everything that's known about a breaking story
Yeah.
is to engage people in a kind of collaboration. So it's kind of like Wikipedia's news backgrounders, but it was focused on the news, and it actually broke down news stories into individual facts, so bullet point facts.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. So I guess the question would be, how can you, analyze this data that's being curated and created, and I guess help people understand what's being shared in the sense that, you can derive insights from this massive collection of data that has now been uploaded and referenced, and so you have this knowledge database.
Hmm.
Are there things that you plan on doing with that? I know people are developing blockchains with AIs built in um, to do this sort of data science in the background, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of emphasis being put on analyzing all of these sources because now there's so much content that one person can't possibly hope to get through it and find what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I've got some ideas there. I uh, just to take one example, I think that if the model works well for encyclopedia articles, it will be applicable to much broader categories of content. Um, in terms of like um, uh, doing data mining and inferring various things based on how people rate articles and whatever. Um, yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of rich possibilities there, and um, it's not all going to be up to me or even restricted to Everpedia Inc.
Yeah.
We're just the people who are getting it started. I like to compare what we are doing to basically starting the internet. Um, we are, um, we're doing more than just starting a new front end for Everpedia.org. So people will be able to use the the data that we generate, any data that we have about, that's published on the blockchain will be equally available to everybody else. And so I imagine, I mean, over the years, I've been consulted many times. People, have interviewed me and got my input on various sorts of like semantic web projects based on my participation in wiki projects, and I imagine this is going to be, if anything, more. They're going to be more excited about the Everpedia network than they were about Wikipedia, because there's whole new dimensions of data available that aren't available on Wikipedia. If somebody, for example, wants to do semantic markup of the top ranked articles, for example, it actually might make more sense if you can tell the funders of such a project that not only is the highest visibility article in the biggest encyclopedia in the world, but it actually has been endorsed by all these experts, um, and and uh, and then the case can be made a lot more easily that we should like break down the claims that it makes into um, various, I don't know, semantic trees and whatever.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, there's tons that can be done, which is why I'm so fascinated by all of it. And I guess with with what Everpedia is doing and so closely juxtaposing that to Wikipedia, it's one of the foremost crypto companies that you can really compare to an existing company and say, this company is trying to iterate on what's been done here, but this is how blockchain is making it better. Do you see that being the case for other platforms in other major areas of the internet? Do you think blockchain will fundamentally change the way that internet companies are operating? Companies like Facebook, Google, do you think we'll get to a point where Google, may be losing a lot of their traffic, and Amazon may be losing a lot of their AWS because people
Sure.
are really moving into this idea of a decentralized information portal?
Yeah. The short answer is yes, but it's still very early days. There's we have I actually think, people say that we've been in the last few days experiencing an analog to the boom and bust cycle from the late 90s and the early aughts, right?
Hmm.
And that's so. I don't think that's the case at all, actually. I think the real analog is to the birth of the web. We actually haven't seen the birth of the web yet, in the blockchain equivalent to the birth of the web. Sure, there's a few examples of useful projects out there already. Um, so Everipedia and any number of others, but I think that there's so much that we haven't done, basically, that you know we have no way of knowing what it's going to look like in 10 years, in the same way that in 1994 we really didn't have any way of knowing what it would look like 25 years later. So,
Yeah.
and it actually has been almost 25 years. Um, so
Yeah, I mean, it's very exciting, and I'm hoping it goes the way it does. A lot of people, I think, get scared off when they see, the volatility, the prices, but
yeah,
I think it's growing pains. There's a lot of misallocated capital out there
yeah,
right now. A lot of people
absolutely.
a lot of people don't realize how it works quite yet.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, there's a lot of speculation basically. I mean, when just regular small investors get involved because it seems like something hot and they don't actually understand what's going on, that's called speculation. And speculation has driven the prices that we've seen in the last year especially. Um, and yeah, that's fine.
do you think that might fundamentally change the way companies raise capital going forward?
I think yeah, I think it's going to have to. I think that there's always going to be a lot of capital for really good um, blockchain developers, um, because I mean, the people who understand blockchain, they know that this is the wave of the future. There's all kinds of advantages that blockchain systems have that over non-blockchain systems. And yeah, I mean, you can't. Now it's all about execution, right? The problem that we've experienced recently is just um, the what is it? The trough of despair.
Yeah.
We're at that stage right now where everybody is disillusioned that we've been talking about all these fantastic things that can be done with blockchain, and yet like they haven't come about instantly, and so
Yeah,
um,
they don't realize a lot of people are heads down developing right now, trying to
right,
get.
actually making them happen. That is
Yeah,
absolutely the case in our company.
yeah,
So
I've
the
noticed that a
guys
lot.
our guys are working very hard, and I've seen wireframes for our new front end. They look great, and and the development has already started. It has continued vigorously, is what I should say.
Yeah.
Hasn't already started. It started as I was saying, almost a year ago, developing our blockchain, and it has just continued very vigorously ever since.
Yeah,
So
and you guys are one of the companies that really consistently is putting things out. It's iterating. A lot of companies they'll put one thing out and it'll be 6 months or a year till they push their next change. And you guys have been very consistent and everything works, which is a big plus at this point.
yeah, thank you.
And that being said, if you have any sort of closing statements, anything you wanted to mention, feel free to go ahead.
Um, well, no, I mean just for those of you who actually have learned about it, you probably don't need me to say to stay the course. Um,
What are the
and
best ways for people
mhm.
to get involved with Everipedia right now?
Well, I would say that if you own EOS or are interested in owning EOS, then it's not that hard um, to get involved if you can like wrap your brain around scatter at this point. Um, and what I would just recommend that you go ahead and go to the site and try your hand at making an account. And if you can't do it right away, that's okay. Keep us on your radar. Subscribe to uh, our Twitter group, or sorry, not Twitter. Sorry, the
Telegram?
uh, Telegram group, and there's other things. We've got a Facebook group. We've got um, a what's the other one? Anyway, I'm sort of
Reddit?
blocking it. Reddit. There you got
Yeah.
it. Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, you put all those things together. We've got lots of ways to engage, and we've got a great, very friendly team to engage with, and yeah, just be on the lookout this spring for a brand new way to quickly and easily get on board and start actually um, unlocking IQ by writing articles for Everpedia.
Yep. Well, and you guys have a really great team, super friendly guys. So I encourage all of you guys to check them out. I'll put the links to their site, Telegram, Reddit, etc., in the description.
Great.
And I'll also have a few other links for you guys to check out some of the stuff that my company is doing right now. Thank you so much for coming on, Larry. I really appreciate it and appreciate your time. I've had a great time, and I hope we'll get to catch up soon and hear about more of Everpedia's process,
Sure.
progress. Yeah.
Sure. Anytime. All right. Thanks.
Yep. No problem. Bye,
Yeah.
guys.